Before I begin, I'd like to thank Marc of Strong Arm Pottery Tools for sending me this wonderful device so I could install it and share it all with you. As you can see in this video, I actually have a wrist injury at the time, teaching high school ceramics all day long, and my upper levels, they're on the wheel, and sometimes kids just struggling, they need help correcting something that's not quite centered, and I fix it for them. That overuse inevitably gives me some wrist issues like tendonitis or something, and I was really concerned about being able to continue to throw. And when Marc and I talked, this seemed like the perfect fit, and I have found that it is. This tool has been such a great, just an aid in helping me to center with less fatigue. It's great if you are maybe just a little bit weaker than you used to be. Perhaps you have an injury of some sort, or maybe you're a production potter and you're concerned that the repetitive nature is going to, take a toll on your shoulder, your wrist, your elbow, whatever it may be. And this tool has been really great. I've really incorporated it into my throwing. You can work with clay that's a little bit stiffer as well, which makes it kind of nice when you're centering, because centering a really large hunk of stiff clay, that can really fatigue you. So I'm going to go through the whole process of setting up and a short tutorial on using it. I will definitely have other videos going into this a lot more. So drop me any questions that you have below, and I hope you enjoy.
All right, so now I'm ready to assemble the strong arm tool onto my scut wheel that I have. I have the leg mount system. If you go to the Strong Arm website, you'll see that you'll order different mounts depending on the type of wheel that you have. It could be a wall mount, table mount, leg mount, a clamp mount, that sort of thing. So because I have a scut wheel, I'm doing the leg mount. Now, in addition to the tools that came with it, like there's a little hex, a little Allen wrench here that came with it, I went ahead and I got a couple of other tools that I'm going to need. And you don't have to have these exact tools, but you will need to have a little driver or wrench that will accommodate the little nut on the end of the clamp. And I have a little driver that I'm going to put, or a little bit that I'm going to put on the one of my drivers. And then also you will need, again, it could be something like an adjustable wrench, or something that will be able to take this bolt out. So I just have my ratchet that fits it. So I just got those to be ready before I get started. Now, all of these instructions are clearly on the Strong Arm videos that Marc has on YouTube, so you can check out his videos, which are super easy to follow. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to unscrew one of the clamps, because one of the clamps is going to end up by going up here in this little spot, and I need to unscrew it so I can fit it in there. Now the other clamp, I can just lift up the leg of the wheel to get that in there. So the first step is going to put the little bracket on. Now it's going on the front left leg, and so let's see, as I do this, this is designed really nicely to go over this spot of the green part of the leg. So as I hold this in here, I can now take my driver and I can tighten this up. All right, now that holds it in place. It needs to be just loose enough that I can still rotate it to find the correct positioning of it. There we go. and it should be up as high as I can get it. So let me push this up a little higher. There we go. So I've got it up to the green part. Now I'll take my other clamp, the one that I already loosened. I can put this up here at this end. Oops, but I'm going to turn this over. There we go. I just wanted the same sort of orientation to this, and the exposure to the little nut in the same orientation. Okay, so now I have both of the little clamps snug on here, but they're not really snug. I can still move this. Okay, next part is to take out this bolt. Okay, now that I've removed the bolt from the end of this, you can see that this little plate has Marc refers to this as a little key on this one side. So I slide that into the slot, and I'm not 100% sure that it matters, but I'm doing it like Marc did in the video. So the key is closest, it's on the side closest to the wheel. And then I will take my bolt that I took out and put it back in the end. Okay, now I still need to be able to move that to get it to the right spot, but it's almost in there. Okay, now I'm going to use my little hex wrench or my Allen key and loosen this one up, and I'm going to put it a little bit above the side of the wheel pan for right now, and I can adjust that as needed. And then this part, okay, so the paddle part has a little red thing. That's an indicator of that should be the center of the wheel. So this gets slid on, okay, and it needs to hover right above the wheel head. So taking into consideration the thickness of, if you have thick bats, that's going to be, you know, something important. Let me just tighten that up a little bit. I'm going to loosen this up a little bit more. Now I forgot where it was. I'm going to rotate my wheel. Alright, so I wanted to rotate my wheel so you could see this a little bit better. So it definitely is not quite in the center. So I need to adjust this. I adjust this little bracket out here. Okay. Get that looking like it's in the center. So once I got that, I'm going to I'm going to tighten the clamps down on the leg again. Let me rotate this down. So I have to tighten these down a little bit more. Okay, so now that's not going to move. Okay, so this is in the center, and now I just need to, let's go ahead and tighten this down. Okay, and definitely going to have to lift this a little bit. So once you have determined how high you need that swing arm, you're going to adjust the nut, which is on the pole. Use the little Allen wrench that came with it and just tighten that down. You want to have that tightened so it just hovers over, 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch or so above the bat surface. Okay, so once you get this adjusted, remember that it should be centered, like this little red dot is showing you the center there. And you want to adjust the height of this to just kind of skim up over the top of the bat. So you will have to change the height of this if you change your bat. And I have several different styles of bat. I have bats that are maybe, 1/2 inch thick. These are just 1/4 inch thick. And Marc's instructions say that it should hover about between 1/4 of an inch and 3/8 of an inch above the surface of the bat. So there we go. I'm all set with that. Now I'm ready for the next step, which is to put the next piece on, and there's a washer that comes with that. You need to have the washer to help these two pieces to spin and independently of each other. Now this piece had a little piece of pipe, just a tube over that. I think that was just there just for the shipping purposes. So as I put that in, okay, the tube will come up through it, and then this lifts up and over. Now you can adjust this. You can adjust it with the height or the depth that you're left with, and you can also adjust it front to back. So if I just scoot this out of the way, again, I want it to be absolutely centered, so it's going to be coming to the center point there. And then also, as I have my bat on there, and I'm going to drop the middle, I want to make sure that I have the thickness of clay that I want there at the bottom. So like in the case of this, I have about 1/4 of an inch. So that's going to be a piece without a trimmed foot. So if I'm making certain forms that I do without trimmed feet, if I want a nice deep foot, I would raise this up and make sure that it's a little bit higher. So this is the setup. I now have this all ready to go. I'm going to learn how to use this off camera a little bit. I don't want to film the first time I'm doing because I don't know how that's going to turn out. So I will learn this off camera, and then I will show you how it works and everything. The first thing that I'm going to mention about the Strong Arm is when I spoke with Marc Geiger, who is the genius behind the engineering of this, who developed this. The first thing that he wanted to mention is that if you're using new clay, it does not need to be wedged, but it would be a good idea if you can make it round. So if you happen to have an inability to wedge, this is going to be kind of a helpful step for you. And actually, I also tell my students this: if you have new clay and you're throwing without a strong arm, I usually just tell them just give it a couple turns to help round it a little bit and help to make it uniform. But in the case of this, I just rounded it a little bit just by tapping it as opposed to wedging it. So that's the first big takeaway. Now, when centering this is my very first time. We're going to see how this goes. Now, you may be able to see that on the bat, I actually did put some concentric circles. Those will help you to kind of get your clay a little bit more in the center. And then one of my tips that I have always told kids is if you can actually just seal it to the bat I think that sealing it to the bat often helps. Now, as you do this, you can kind of gauge it and try to make sure that that's looking fairly centered along with your lines there. Okay. Now, when you are starting the centering process with the strong arm, Marc recommends you start at kind of a slowish speed. You just take enough water to add a little bit of moisture with your sponge one time, and then you bring that strong arm in. Now, this has a little bit of play to the arm, which is totally normal. The key thing to remember is you are just pulling this inward instead of downward. So as I push this inward, okay, with the paddle, I can also take my left hand and just kind of hook my thumb over the top. So as I am bringing this in, it's just skimming right above the bat. I'm pushing my hands together just like I would when centering anything. So I'm going to go ahead and speed my wheel up just a smidge. And one of the things Marc wanted me to emphasize is you don't want to be hunched over your wheel, okay? You're standing up at this point. When you're standing up nice and straight, it helps you to have a little bit more control. Oh, and the other thing that he talked about was look at the arm as opposed to looking at the clay. We're so used to looking at the clay, but if you look at the arm and you can see that the arm is no longer wobbly, then you know that you're centered. Okay, now the top, I was able to kind of keep the top flat there just with my left thumb. And before I go to the next step, this is recommended. So as I take my left thumb, I can kind of push it down in there and make a slight well, or as Marc describes it, a slight volcano. That gives you an indent. Now I can pull that out, and then I can bring this one in. Now before I go do the next step, I'm going to add a little bit of water here. Okay, now as you do this, even though this was centered, you can see that up here it's coming at it from a little bit more from the outside. Well, remember, this is a lever, so as I push this down in there, it's eventually going to the center. Now I might want a little bit more water on there because I do have a little bit of a hunk of clay that peeled off. Okay, and I'm keeping my left thumb on the top, and as I push this down in there, okay, I go down to the preset depth that I had, and then I'm going to push it open just a little bit. Okay. I'm going to add just a little bit more water to this. So once I can clean this guy off. And then as I pull this open, I can now pull it open to my desired width on the interior, keeping my left hand there on the side. And now I have a beautifully centered hunk of clay that's ready for pulling. And I'm just going to pull that up as normal. Now, why would I want to use the strong arm? Maybe I just want to be a production potter and I want to be faster. Maybe I have some physical ailment that's making it more difficult, like a wrist injury, a shoulder injury. Maybe I'm just weaker than I used to be 30 years ago, right? A strong arm can be for anyone, but you still need to know all the principles behind the pulling and the centering.
The whole point that I want to get across is the strong arm is not a replacement for knowing how to center or how to throw. It's just a tool to help you if you're maybe struggling with the strength of it, or you're going to be doing it so repetitively that it's going to fatigue you. If you are just beginning to learn, I recommend that you learn without the strong arm first, so you learn how to center, and then you can begin to use it and integrate it to help in your centering process.